I think that was policy. All right. Our owls should be working now. Can it just fix them? This is my last meeting hosting before our chair takes over, which is why I'm wearing my party hat. Eliza, would you mind checking who's here?
Sure. Chester will be late. Clinton, no one's here. From Deep River, we have Daniel Smith and Carol Doak Jones with their new first selectman. Jim is not coming. Roy is not coming. From Essex, we have David Rosengren. From Middletown, we have Mark Koskowski. From Essex, we have Carrie Duquez. From Old Lyme, we have Michael Fogliano. And from Portland, we have Dan Beret. And who did I miss? And Eric Salmon from Clinton.
Yeah, Carl.
Westbrook.
Waiting room.
Westbrook, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Do you work in Clinton?
Nope, it's Westbrook.
We have Carl as well, just joined us.
Oh, and Carl Fortuna from Old Saybrook. Hello, Carl.
He's really gonna think we're the only party at this office.
That's true.
All right, I will move on to item 2, approval of the minutes for the November 28th meeting. Can I get a motion? Anybody?
I'll move it, whatever you need.
Thank you. And a second. Second. Awesome. All in favor? Good.
All right,
Cool.
all right.
We're very casual for the people joining us for the first time. This is a great meeting to join. Any opposed? Abstain? All right, because you were not here. All right, moving on. So this is a really brief agenda today, but because it is our last meeting before the new year, we wanted to open it up to all of you to talk about our priorities for the upcoming year. So we have a couple of items in the bylaws that we have to continue working on, for example, our toolkit, and also working on our methodology for determining our housing needs projections for our housing plans. But what is in each of those items, how we approach them, and any additional things that we would like to cover in the 2024 year, we would like to hear from you. So any thoughts, any suggestions?
Well, one thought I had actually, I'm an alternate, but since it's not here. Would it be good at some point, and I attended a planning and zoning committee meeting where there are some new members, new chair people to do some sort of joint. I mean, some of the things you're doing, we're doing some great things and they're asking some questions. Now, I don't, you know, some of the things we might have in our toolkit, I don't know exactly what role this committee has. I'm new to the committee.
Absolutely.
Versus what Rivercog would do otherwise, or whether they'd be invited in, or whether we would be invited out. There's a thought of, we're doing some great things, and I think I don't want to, I know Pat does a great job of communicating what we learned, but I just thought maybe to answer some questions and to have this give and take would be really helpful.
I love that
Like
idea.
a roadshow?
It could be a roadshow. We could actually go to them if we want to at their meetings, or they, you know, you could have the chairperson coming to one of our meetings where I just was trying to think of that interface that I thought would be helpful, since we're doing a lot of thinking.
Yeah,
We still need some refinement, but that's just a thought.
I think that's an excellent idea. That was actually something Michael and I were talking about before everyone got here. With the toolkit, you know, one of the things we want to make sure of is that it's something that's useful for all of the towns. I love that, going to the P&Zs and seeing what they want to be working on, because our goal here has been to make it as easy as possible for them to adopt the regulations that they want to adopt, whatever that means. That's workshopping, if that's providing additional items in the toolkit. And also just knowing that we're here as a resource. That makes a lot of sense. I like roadshow too. It could be a roadshow slash workshop. Any other ideas?
Pick up on our conversation before things started too, which is, taking the, the toolkits, which have already been super useful for us, to the next level. So as those concepts and approaches evolve into language and regulations, to have some resources to actually assemble regulations from them.
Awesome.
I think it's another opportunity to leverage what's happening across the 17 towns and try to lower the bar for actually coming up with the
Language.
language.
With the toolkits, do you have kind of case studies or examples of how those toolkits have been applied?
We have some template like regulations. We also have, or like examples of regulations kind of nationwide. And then some like articles, you know, APA stuff or Urban Land Institute, stuff like that, we could include in there.
Right, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, the way we were trying to approach it so far is kind of a choose your own adventure format. Understanding that, you know, there's not gonna be a one size fits all. So more like, here are the components of a typical regulation, here are some of the lessons learned from the articles, and make it as brief as possible. But then maybe providing also some samples of different ways it's been applied, or some of that background information as well. Any other ideas? Suggestions for the toolkit?
I was thinking something like, somehow to better approach like both public education and public engagement, around housing. So that's probably the biggest obstacle is, getting public buy-in.
Yeah. So are you thinking like tools for that, or like something we could provide on the website that is educational material? Both?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, I like what John did for the ADUs. You remember he created that one sheet that could be put into a flyer or a handout, or, you know, or distributed to people when they come in to, you know, apply for planning and zoning. I really like that a lot because it was super informative and it was consolidated. And I think there's other things that we can offer people up when they come in to see, or at least have as a resource at the city hall.
Yeah. So are you thinking then for people that are applying for permits, like for the public, this is public facing versus say
Well,
for
with the
commission?
ADU, I people for permit, I mean, depending on what the topic is, like a split, you know, there's so many different things you can do with the house. So anything that would apply to homeowners or residents when they're ready to do an improvement or curious if they can or cannot. I think that's great, along with the learning discussions we've been having. It's a great deliverable to drop in the toolkit, because it's something that can be easily passed on without educating everybody along the chain. They just look and say, oh yeah, this is for this. Oh yeah, somebody came in, you know, it's like, obviously the rest of the stuff would just be for our committees, not of interest to residents like that, but still anything that can be made more digestible, I
Yeah,
think that's the way to go.
okay. And is that what you were thinking
Yeah,
too, Eric?
yeah, no,
Okay.
that's even better than I was thinking. And that just, you know, came up with, you know, some ideas, like some things that people just don't hear but don't understand, and even people like us as, you know, what's AMI, you know, and what is that
Right.
for our towns? Like, I don't know what it is, you know, for any of us, and what the percentages are, or
Right,
like, what's a deed restriction, you know? How
Right,
and how does that, what is it and how do you go about and what does it mean, you know?
right.
We'll have a preliminary idea of what's going on, but having something that we can all use to include in packages, application packages, or disperse, you know, in other ways, that'd be great.
Yeah, I like
So
how that
like-
was just leveled up in the application package. I'm like, yes, that's an awesome idea in general.
We got synergy going here, I like it. So we kind of heard some data points, explanations of key terms, something for the application packages. Okay,
I'm really liking that because I think some people come in not even knowing that they're doing an ADU.
right,
Because they're just, having an in-law move in and they got to expand or they have to do something, and just giving that information, it's like, wow, this could help you. And I know some of the towns are talking about possibly putting together tax incentives. We aren't there yet in Deep River, but definitely that's, you just add that little postie, I guess, to your version of it or something, and it might help with our numbers across the area.
awesome. And I love your updated background with the Christmas tree.
Yeah, I was chased out of the library, so I'm in the.
Oh, I thought you just did it to join the festive atmosphere.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's exactly what it was. I just wish there were more cookies here. That's what I need.
They'll be here for a while based on the number we have. So come by. This is awesome. Any other ideas? I'm gonna also put out a sheet when we're done, for people to fill in, and we'll email it out too for further ideas before our next meeting. But we wanna get ourselves set up for some good stuff in the new year.
Maybe one other thing, Megan, is, I'm sure the next legislative session is likely to be an active one, as they have been for the past years. So maybe keeping tabs on some of the dominant themes that are emerging there.
Yeah. I mean, and we can provide testimony on things as well.
I was just at the CCM conference at the last meeting, and the governor spoke, and it was really interesting when he talked about a lot of things, but when he talked about his priorities, top theme that he articulated was affordability. And the first sub-theme under affordability was housing.
Yeah,
And he committed money and influence to that. And also interestingly said, expressed some commitment to having local solutions
that's great.
rather than top down.
Very cool. Any other ideas? We have some really good ones, setting ourselves up for a busy year, but that's good.
I got one thing to add, something that I've really liked that we've been doing, but we can, keep doing it, is the bringing in guest speakers
Yeah,
to come in and share their experiences and successes. And continue to do that, but at the same time, kind of catalog their information, so that can be part of the toolkit where we have kind of experts in certain areas where any of us could reach independently to
yeah,
to pick their brains on a more intimate level.
great. Like who are you gonna call in X circumstance?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, Megan,
Hmm,
I just sent you an email on the Municipal Development Redevelopment Authority,
Okay,
which has been reactivated, and we're looking at that potentially. I don't know what you know about that, but there's a $60 million authorization for that, once the governor appoints who he's supposed to appoint, and it's for TOD and affordable housing and all kinds of things like that. So that might be something that the COG wants to get a little bit more involved in. We're gonna certainly do that on our end in terms of our Mariners Way project as we after we finish up with our consultant on that area. So it may be something that, I don't know if you guys want to do a little deeper dive on. I've checked with CCM to get in touch with the governor's office to see if the appointments have been made by the governor. So that this can start moving forward. DECD has a $600,000 operating budget the next 2 years for this and a $60 million bonding authority. So there's money out there, and it's, you know, probably money that small towns can access, so.
That's fantastic.
um,
Yeah, we'll look more into that. I don't know much at the moment,
Right,
but yeah, absolutely. Speaking of money out there, we have not heard anything back from our pro-housing grant yet, so stay tuned, and I will keep everyone posted as soon as we know. I'll send out an email.
Oh, yeah, we're very tuned in on that one. That could be great. I'm wishing you luck. But do we have now like a list on the site? And I'm remiss if it was put up and because I haven't been on there recently. That does have a list of known resources, such as
We
the Regional Housing Commission that you just spoke about.
We have all of the housing committees and housing authorities linked on our website right now. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to share what we have, is that accessible on the website? From our end, fixing up this website is one of our key priorities, just getting all of this information that we've been gathering up and accessible for everybody. Nope. Of course.
That's cool.
It's a
No, it's
sister
not.
site.
No, really not.
It's pretty awesome.
Get that working first.
Yeah, it seems I often hear about funding sources like the day before, the day after the application time. I mean, not just for
Yeah.
this, but it seems like any of the clubs that I'm on the boards with, it's hard to stay on top of what is available, and I understand that even for us, but I was wondering if we had like a list of grants and that type of thing.
Oh, that sort of a thing. We don't at the moment, but that's something that would be really good, I think, for us to keep tabs on as a group, all of the housing related grants that come available and making that a resource.
So there's not like one place where those are.
I know.
Right.
I know, we seem to find that they come to us at the last minute as well.
Yeah,
often,
I
but
think
they-
I think that's the norm, right, for everybody in the room. But that's why I thought, well, would it be neat to kind of have a little bit of a heads up to, maybe be able to draft something with a few days advance.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that working collectively as a group, we're building capacity for each other, right? So maybe if one of us hasn't
Exactly.
heard of it, another of us has, and we can make that available for everyone. Or, if it's something that applies to many of us, we can put together a coalition application to be more competitive.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
The more we work together, the more of a chance we have for money.
We're just a little town.
Yeah. It's been working, knock wood, it's been working fairly well for us recently. We have record grants right now, record grant funding for RiverCog, which is really incredible and also just speaks to the moment that we're in. So the more we can prepare ahead, the better. But I like that idea too of adding something to the website where as soon as we hear about these, we put them up and make them available for all of you.
That'd be awesome.
I wanted to go back to the speakers. So we have people coming in to speak about, like, organizations that work in the housing sphere. We've had speakers from housing authorities, developers, nonprofits. Who else? Are there any other groups of people that we want to hear from? As kind of a series, a speaker series. I
Are
mean,
there other counterparts in other parts of the state, like another
Yeah.
cog, maybe? I
I
don't know.
like that,
I don't know what other cogs are doing, but.
but maybe we should, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the Community Foundation of Eastern Connecticut is doing something really interesting. They have chosen housing as one of their issues, and they have a new director for that subsect. I think it would be good to get in touch with them.
That's Sevilla,
Sorry?
that's Sevilla.
Oh, isn't?
I think she'd be a good speaker potentially, because
That's a
because
great
of what they're doing in all of Eastern Connecticut. It's a real priority of that community foundation, and it's a different kind of approach from, you know, we don't think about community foundations actually being proactive like that.
Right.
So I
Awesome.
thought
Okay.
that might be a good one.
Or to
Great.
follow up on what was just discussed about grants, maybe a grant writer.
Yeah.
I think that's on everybody's Christmas list this year, isn't it? It's on ours, for sure.
Ours too.
Favorite cogs too.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm willing to bet right now the grant writers are all of us, right?
Right,
Well, that's the reality, right?
but a little education on that would go a long way.
And you're absolutely right. I know, because they don't make it easy, do they?
Is there any place well, Connecticut or even other states or even in the country where somebody has actually been successful doing what we talk about all the time? I mean, some real community where they actually changed the landscape in terms of affordable housing in a material way, and I don't mean just having a couple of units here and there, but someplace where they came up with a real material change.
I mean, there are a lot of places that have had successful affordable housing developments. I don't know if I know of a place where the whole landscape of affordability has changed, just because it's an ongoing problem. But there are select examples of successful affordable housing projects.
Well, sure, right. You see them in the newspaper,
Yeah,
and
um,
you see the articles, but I'm talking about, you know, somebody. Are there national gurus on this subject that we could invite even through a Zoom or?
yeah, I mean, APA does housing stuff all the time, so we could have someone, the American Planning Association, does a lot of work on housing, and, you know, we bring a lot of their information in for the toolkit stuff,
Yeah.
but having a representative from APA come and talk to us,
Mhm.
we have someone in with APA.
Figure it out.
I was also thinking, you know, if we're gonna be looking at methodologies for housing needs assessments, maybe other states that take a regional approach to housing needs and how, you know, how they approach housing needs assessments and what's worked and what hasn't worked and what they might change. You know, learn from example.
Anyone in this?
Maybe.
Awesome.
I think it could be beneficial to bring in somebody, that might have more of like an economic development, expertise, that understands the relationship between kind of business development and, housing for their employees and the type of employees that they have and kind of housing, that their employees want.
Yeah, absolutely.
EB.
Hmm?
EB. Someone from EB, it's
Yeah,
like, I'm sure they
yeah.
have an employee that's
Absolutely.
working on that right now.
Electric boat.
There we go.
Yeah,
I know, I think might be Deep River where some of the marinas are building or providing their own housing for their summer workers, you see, yeah.
Wow.
Any familiarity with that, Deep River?
I am not familiar with that, but I'm gonna look into it now.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Are there any,
Somebody,
oh, go ahead.
oh, but yeah, I was just gonna go quick. Somebody from, I think, Meg Perulis works for EB now. She was the former Westbrook town planner. So if you wanted somebody from EB, she might be good.
What was the name?
Yeah, what was it?
Dan?
Dan, send me an email with that name.
What was that? Meg Perulis?
Oh, Meg.
Yeah, she was the
Awesome.
Westbrook town planner.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love my planning folks. Awesome. Very cool.
Are there any other states that have had reached as far towards affordable housing as the one that we're working towards with Connecticut? You know, the 10% in each town do you know, does anyone here know, did Massachusetts go that far? Is anybody else going that far?
Well, New Jersey's going further.
Further?
I think New Jersey is instituting a fair share program.
It has been, I think, right?
Yeah, it's been for a while because
Yeah.
the group that did that is up here trying to help us.
I think
Yeah, well,
that,
that's why I'd be curious to see how they did it there, if they're farther along in New Jersey or whatever. Because, you know, we've all run to already the pitfalls, right? Like in Lyme, it's like, I remember we were talking early on, it's like, well, the sustainable development's X size, and then they're only adding so many units. And I'm sure that's a common thing. So how, you know, it would be nice to hear from another area that obviously isn't the same as our Rivercog, but how they've dealt with it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, Massachusetts, I'm just looking it up. So they have chapter 40B and 10% of every community's housing affordable. So it's very similar to ours.
They're equivalent to us then, right? As far as a state mandate.
Yeah,
there aren't a lot of states, I think, with that mandate.
not with a mandate like that.
Yeah.
Well, you had read that article.
Yeah, Vermont, I think, I don't know if you just said Vermont, if I heard that from your mouth. Vermont has one, but it's not like super effective and it's not the same. Massachusetts is probably the closest. But they all have different metrics, like the fair share thing in New Jersey is similar but different, so.
Yeah, California has a fair share, but it's not a mandate of building houses and there's not an appeals process like that. It's, you have to show that you've planned for and your land use as zoned can accommodate a certain number of houses. So it's different. But we
Did it
can
say
look
on
into
there,
that.
when did Massachusetts put that in, the 40B? Did it say on? I'm sorry, I forget everybody's names, so whoever looked it up.
I don't see it.
I feel like it was in the 80s, around the same time that.
Yeah, ours was like 89,
Yeah.
88, 89.
I think it was before ours because I believe that A30G is modeled on the Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
So-
right.
I was gonna ask, so A30G is what, 35 odd years old now?
40.
No, I thought it was 88, 89. So
Okay.
that's
Alright, so
31.
ballpark, almost going on, it's in its third decade, going on 4 decades.
Okay.
How many towns in Connecticut actually have 10%, other than the big, other than
But
the.
they're exempt, the big cities are exempt from A30G.
Okay, but that's what I meant, towns, not the
I
city.
actually just read an article that had a number. I think it's 122 that do not meet the 10%.
If you
Out
look
of,
at
out of
the
169.
appeals listing has a.
So,
actually what that-
80% after after 3.5 decades, we still have 80% of the towns that don't even meet the, a minimal 10%.
I don't think it was really enforced though until recently, isn't it? Some sort of a new,
they're talking about it, but the problem is that
It's not,
the teeth in 830G is, well, if you don't do it, a developer can come and do it, but the numbers don't work for the developers.
right, exactly. Exactly. So it's sort of
I'm not
There's
sure how they
another-
could enforce it everywhere. I mean, that in Deep River, we'd be happy to build some stuff and do some stuff, but it's all about land acquisition. We're small. There's only so much land that's available. And so far, none of it seemingly for affordable housing yet. And we're putting a lot of effort in defining it, but yeah, I don't see how we're gonna hit that.
Yeah, I think that, that brings up another good point in terms of priorities. When we're working on the toolkit, you know, is our goal really to reach a 10%, or is our goal to provide more affordable housing? And ideally, the answer would be both, or ideally, we would have a different legal landscape to work with. But that's kind of a long time coming. We can, you know, push for that. We can make recommendations to the state on that. I don't know what our success rate would be, but while some of the tools would work to satisfy both of those things, not all of them will. For example, ADUs, it's not likely you're gonna get to your 10% via ADUs because it's not likely that they're gonna qualify. However, they will do a good job of providing more affordable housing and a different housing option for people who might need it. So I think as we're looking at the tools, you know, we have to think about what it is that we are gearing towards.
I mean, Lyme almost meets its 10% if you count ADUs and those, except for the fact that none of them are deed restricted, so even though they qualify every other way, they don't qualify as affordable housing, because no one wants to do the deed restriction.
Right, exactly, and, no,
how does how does an ADU really meet the goal of what I'd call more integrated housing? Because I mean, most people think of an ADU as having your in-laws move in.
right.
So, I mean, those are retired people typically.
Mhm,
They have, fixed income.
mhm.
I don't know how that changes. See, to me, there's another aspect to this, and that is segregation.
Mhm.
And we live in either the most or the second most segregated state in the country. I mean, that just boggles one's mind when you think of, oh, well, wait a minute, we were on the right side of the Civil War, yet, we're more segregated than almost any other place in the United States. And to me, the two are very much linked. Because when people say affordable housing, I read an article in the Connecticut Mirror, and I don't want to take up a whole lot of time, but the article was, it's a great, it was about affordable housing in Newington, I think it was, I think it was Newington, big project. And they talked about one couple who finally found their affordable housing, and my cynical reaction was, well, there's plenty of affordable housing, you just don't want to move where it might be affordable.
Got it.
And so we're building these affordable housing. But is it just continuing to concentrate, literally segregation? Does it work to break that, hold? And I'm not sure it does, and maybe we ought to think about, maybe we ought to integrate the topic and the issue of segregation into our discussions about housing.
Well, I'll take the easier part of it.
That ties
Which
into
is-
economic development as well. I mean, if you have you have diversity in some parts of the state because there's industry there that a lot of different young families out of school from wherever can come in and get into. And at least Deep River, I know each of our towns is a little bit different up and down the cog, but there's not a lot of new industry inviting college graduates with young families that, change the canvas, if you will.
Right, I mean, jobs are definitely part of it. What was that phrase that we heard at Thrive? It was something about, something follows rooftops was,
Commercial follows rooftops.
Yeah, but it
something
was
like
a
that.
nice alliteration, something like that.
Retail follows.
Retail follows rooftops, that you build the housing when the jobs come, but you also need jobs to support people moving to build the housing. The easier part with the ADUs is no, obviously, that's not gonna be a solution for, you know, integration and diversity. But it does provide a subset of affordable housing for elderly people potentially wishing to age in place. Or for,
Right.
you know, that entry level of housing. Usually it does go to a family member in kind of this environment. In places that are more urban, they do rent out to strangers, as more of a normal rental housing. But here, where it's more a large lot, it's more separated. It would typically probably be a family member, either a parent or, you know, an older child, moving out or something, but it is a subset of affordable housing needs that can be met. But is it a silver bullet solution to all of the housing problems? Absolutely not.
I don't think there are any silver bullets.
I
You
agree.
need to have a full toolbox of approaches depending on what your target demographic is.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think our goal, the way I see it, is to provide a mixture of different housing styles, types, locations. You know, kind of run the gamut as much as we can as a region to support as many different, you know, types of households as we can.
Do we have demographics in our toolkit yet about, and what I mean is economic demographics, race demographics, those kinds of things?
So.
And if you do, it's my ignorance because I didn't look.
No, so yeah, no, you didn't miss anything because it's not actually there yet. But no,
Yet.
we have it collected. It's all in spreadsheet format. We need to get it into the actual web tools. so people
I'd like
can
to see
it
that
online.
in our toolkit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that we're just building up as an agency in general to go after, to follow our regional plan of conservation and development, to make all of our own planning efforts easier, is just to have all of these breakdowns in a live, web tool. But we want to break it down so that it's easy for all of the towns to make use of in your planning efforts as well, so that we're all using one set of data and we can compare across the board. Just to make things easier, save everybody time.
I just had a quick look, by the way, there are 29 towns that are exempt.
That's it. We have
No,
one.
they're exempt. They're not that they've met it. They're exempt.
Well, actually, all of them have greater than 10%.
Okay.
And interestingly, 10 of them have populations of less than 10,000.
Okay.
There are some
interesting case
towns
studies.
though that don't hit the 10% that are also exempt for a short amount of time.
So they have moratoriums.
Yeah.
That's the point system that arcane.
No one understands
Yeah.
Yeah,
how to meet it. Megan, the discussion is the priority.
yes, yeah,
I do have, can
yeah, let's
Jump
hear
in.
it.
I don't know if this was already said, but, the goal is to have more diverse housing that people can afford to stay in. We can keep our younger people age in place, all those things. But there's so many units that we have that don't count toward the 10%. How do we get the state to
That's a
count some?
legislative.
Is that what we were saying? I mean, that's
The
the
legislative thing.
conundrum.
I've talked to our legislators and they're like, it's not happening. Yeah, it's as far as getting if it qualifies for everything except for the deed restriction, can it still be, because that's the tall pole in the tent. We surveyed we identified our NOAA. And we went out and surveyed them about would they be willing to give a deed restriction?
I
No.
don't wanna do it.
Yeah.
So you did do that. Because I was thinking of conducting another audit in our town. We have, just off the top of my head, we have like 3 past resorts that were multi-unit that were remodeled and now they're apartments. They don't qualify for the deed restriction reasons, I suppose. But because I'm pretty sure if we did an audit, we'd be a lot closer to that 10%. I mean, we're Deep River. we are affordable. I still can't get past that.
How do you survey, the NOAA? Cause we're about to do that. I just wanna make sure.
We were a small town, we just, went around and, we've only got 1,100 units in the whole town.
There isn't like the assessor has that
Yeah,
data.
the assessor.
The assessor does.
the data.
Is that
There is one
something
class
we
of
can do?
NOAA that does qualify, and that's for, CHFA or USDA mortgage.
Yeah, then it doesn't matter, if they qualify for the mortgage, they
They qualify.
qualify as.
And it's interesting with the market going crazy, we're losing those
Yeah.
faster than we're gaining them.
You see, in Lyme, I'm trying to build, rentals because we have almost no rental properties and that's really the entry level for the targets that we're talking about.
More rental units in general, just anecdotally, when I moved here from California, I landed in Old Saybrook because it was the closest place to the Rivercog office that had available rental properties for me.
No, that's, it's not just affordable housing, it is rental housing for families. I was talking to our exterminator earlier this week, and they finally found a home in Southington. It wasn't where they were looking, but they finally found a home and put an offer, and they were shocked they got it, because every offer they put in, and I'm sure you've all heard this story, it just, they get outbid instantly. So it's so competitive for these people, young people. And we need them. We need them in our schools. We need the kids.
Well, and if we're trying to attract people, young people from out of state, or even from different parts of the state, it's not likely that they're gonna come out here and buy a place immediately, either because they can't afford it, or because why am I going to purchase a property in a place that I don't know if I'm going to like? So just having that transitional housing as well for people who wanna test it out and see if it's a permanent place to stay. I ended up buying a house in Old Saybrook because that's where I rented, and I rented there long enough to know that I liked it, and so now I'm there. Again,
Well,
just
no,
anecdotal.
we rented up here for 4 years in the house literally next door. And then when this house became available, we jumped on it because there was nothing for sale for those 4 years. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
People also want to live near where they work,
yeah,
right? And there's no place to work. And I'm just, I'm Essex centric, so,
yeah,
if you work in Essex, the chances are you don't live in Essex.
right,
And if you don't work in Essex, if you live in Essex, the high probability is you don't work in Essex.
right.
So it's really almost a retirement community. I mean, how do you change that?
Yeah, but you've got a lot of people who drive up to Hartford, drive down to New Haven.
Not that many.
We have data on this in our economic development
I
plan.
looked it up. I looked it up on the census data, and the people who we are, the famous example would be like Aspen,
Mhm.
right? Nobody who works in Aspen can afford to live in Aspen, right? It's not that dissimilar. It really isn't. I looked up the demographics. And if you work here, odds are you don't live here. And if you live here, odds are you don't work here.
That's exactly right. Yeah, we import most of our workers from New Haven, New London, Hartford,
Yeah.
even from Middletown coming down to the shoreline as well. And then most of our workers leave.
I will tell you, we have been doing business outreach, we're very fortunate in Chester. We have a lot of light manufacturing there, smaller companies, but doing manufacturing. We've been out talking with them in the last couple of weeks. Every CEO we spoke to said that's their biggest challenge is finding workers, and it's because there's no place for them to live around here.
Yeah,
We're doing our PCOD right now, and we've gone out and had sensing sessions. And every stakeholder, from the fire department to the businesses, and the businesses are owned by some pretty conservative people, and they're all saying we need affordable housing.
Yeah, that came up over and over again in our SED too, which was an economic development plan, but the number one issue that we heard that was a barrier to economic development was lack of housing for workers. Whether that was an affordability thing or just not housing of a style and type that's attractive to the workers that they want.
Well, and that's where it would be helpful to hear from EB or
Yeah.
Sikorsky or one of those big employers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think you raise a good point that if people like where they're living, they're willing to drive if they have a good,
Yeah.
life-work balance maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who built, the on-site housing? Is that EB? One of the companies down there
Oh, I
is
don't know.
building
They were
on-site
trying.
housing.
I don't know if they ever succeeded. Do you remember that conversation?
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, how are you?
I don't.
Yes,
I know.
Nice
to see you.
We gotta sort of remember that that was sort of the model of the Gilded Age,
Yeah.
you know? Oh, let's build housing for workers, and even
It's
Lamont
called
said,
company town.
wow, we ought to call it workforce housing, which I think is not a great idea, okay? Yeah, but, you know, like you said, there's no silver bullet, that's why it's such a complicated, issue. That's why it's so hard to solve.
Have you guys ever talked about doing sewers? Because this sounds like the density issue is you have to have a certain size for septic, so you need to have sewers to have
A
more
lot of
density.
our soils are not suitable, and you get such a public outrage when you do it.
So is there actually talks of like have the state just do it and then towns or whatever
Save a
actually?
lot of money.
The state doesn't just do it.
Yeah, I know, well, I understand that, but you know, just.
I'll either do it.
No, do it themselves and then just tax you for it. This is your contributing factor. Put in the
Called
service.
county government or
And-
We
state
do not
government.
have
Yeah.
government.
Well, you know,
No, no, it's a good
Because-
point.
that's the,
Well,
going back to housing.
the model to look back onto that is down on the shoreline. East Lyme is limited in their development, because they run out of room at the sewer end
Yeah.
over in New London. The sewer plant can't take anymore. And each town is being allotted their own allotment of waste. And they're maxing it out. East Lyme is capped. Old Lyme wants to tie in their beach areas to the sewers, and they're having problems with that, and they're looking at building sort of like a mini plant or something.
If Clinton had sewer issues, has sewer issues. I did a lot of work on sewer plants when I was a lawyer, and part of the problem with sewers is you gotta have a plan.
Yeah.
And you can't just sewer like Essex, because we don't have any place to put the poop. It's that
Can't
simple.
put it in the river like they used to.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, if you could put it in the river, it'd be great. Well, that's where it eventually goes, even if you have a sewer plant, but,
Yeah.
Would it
You know,
be
another
great?
side of the discussion is to look at some of the emerging on-site waste treatment technology that's being used on, like on the South Shore of Long Island effectively and in places in Massachusetts. So I think for really high-density stuff, it's not an option, but if you go for some of the, taking essentially a rural area and doing modest increases in density, it could be a way to bypass the costs and some of the problems with sewers.
And they've come a long way with leaching, the engineered leaching. It's a product, it's a box that they put in.
And then, you know,
And it keeps your groundwater home.
Yeah.
there's other technologies too. Instead of using normal toilets, you could do composting, but I don't know.
You're not.
Well,
you're-
That's interesting
So-
because it's also solid waste. We had a very passionate vote in Deep River last Tuesday about, we received the grant to separate our solid household trash in our food scraps. And of course, there was some community outrage and the vote didn't go through to continue after that grant. But of course, the town still has to look for a solution because the costs for the solid waste, just the tipping fees, are skyrocketing up. And then the idea of, well, let's get more housing to, let's get more solid waste trash. It's the same issue as the sewer. We can only have so much before we're past the max.
Yeah. It's a good point.
So I'm hearing maybe part of a speaker series, we've got economic development, we've got maybe a waste component, some, like maybe a series where we get different aspects that touch on housing, some experts in different fields to come and talk to us about the intersection of housing with all of these issues and how that might relate to what our towns are doing, changes we might be able to make and kind of put some options together that way for our toolkit.
That sounds good. I also, what keeps coming up in the last few minutes is community outreach. I would love to learn more about how to do some community outreach on everything that we're discussing, because that's where we keep hitting a wall with everything we're discussing, you know, when it goes to the town.
Educational speaker,
Yeah.
that,
So Michael, you were saying
I don't know who
that,
that is.
you were talking to Lamont, I'm sorry, were you, I'm sorry.
what?
You were, not you, but you were listening to Lamont and his, in terms of what he wanted to do. After we go through all these folks that we want to talk to locally, I think it would be great to be able to share some of that up. To sort of say, here are the constraints that we all agree that we need more affordable housing. Here are the constraints that we have heard at the River Cog through our various speakers and through our various resources. And so to try to, because really it's the legislature that's gonna help us or not, be able to move up with some of those constraints that we're hearing.
And I'd like to put in a pitch for, we just had our COG legislative meeting and Christine Palm came and she gave a few minutes talk about participation in the legislation. And it was really eye-opening, some of the numbers she gave. And what we do at the COG is if there's a member that finds a piece of legislation that they would like us to testify on, is they'll tell Sam, he'll write something up. Sometimes everybody signs it, sometimes they don't. He will either send it in or he will go to the meeting and testify, but that is something that this group can do as well. So just want to put that out there, that we, as a committee, we can write a letter.
Yeah.
Or
And
testify, or,
speak,
yeah.
Yeah, or provide mass too, if we want, we can send a letter
Yeah.
and then all go individually and testify. If that was something people were interested in. But I love the idea, I think that's kind of a two-part approach for the state. I love the idea of collecting everything and bringing it back up to the state. I like the idea of showing them, one, that we've been working on this, because I feel like there's this attitude of the state that the towns are the enemy standing in the way of affordable housing. So to show that we've been working on something and we're trying to solve some problems. And two, I feel like the approach that's been coming down from the state has been kind of ham-handed, like a little one note, not nuanced at all. So to bring in, look, we're starting from the ground up, we're working on this, but there are all these other things that if you addressed, we could do our work a lot better. I like that framing of it.
Are there people that when you were talking that this was Vermont's focus, is there an organization other than the CD?
It was CCM.
CCMD, or CCM?
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Well,
Conference of Municipalities.
yeah, but that's Council of Municipalities, which is great, but I was actually thinking from the state side of the people that you were talking to that were speaking about this, that we would want to make our point person to go back to, who might have some responsibility in this area for the state. I don't know who that is.
This doesn't emerge from that particular conference, but the folks at DOH are pretty are really receptive. And I believe the ETB as well, the economic development.
So maybe it would be good to have representatives from both of those, once we have our list of issues that we, or obstacles that we have seen, or things that are making it difficult for us to achieve what we all want to achieve.
But the problem to solve is the people we elect to go to the state, who sit in the state, are all from the towns. So if they're afraid of champion issues that they're gonna get blowback on and not get elected the next time, then it all comes back to where we are. that's the vicious cycle or the dead end cycle. Because they're all elected from here. So if Representative A, who lives in a town where people don't want what we're selling, they're not gonna support that up there.
And the other side of that is, we are so small that it's hard to get the power centers in the state government to pay attention to us. They don't listen to us.
I think we can get attention by doing something new. That's, you know, to show that, I take your point, I think you're right. But I think by showing that we're working on something and we're approaching it differently, we might have more of a chance of getting noticed. We could also make ourselves a success story for the state if we're willing to, you know?
The rigid definition of affordable housing that doesn't fit the Lower Connecticut River Valley,
Mm.
and an unwillingness to even discuss it.
Yeah,
Well, the cons now are outstanding as the designated planning entities for the state, right?
we are the county equivalent, yes.
And it's, I don't know if it was last year or this year, it's the end of the transition, right?
Yeah, but we have no authority. It doesn't really come with much.
It's actually a federal designation. The state's kind of like, cool, good job.
Ah.
How many legislators can you rally to your cause? It's all numbers.
Hopefully both of them.
See my part about we're so small.
I mean, I was amazed when we did the pro-housing application, how many letters of support. We had over 40 letters of support from federal representatives, state representatives, all the state departments, all the towns.
Also EB, talking about what we're
Yeah. Nonprofits, like, so I feel like if we really made a push, we could rally people to the cause. You know, we could,
Well, let's not be defeatist to start.
yeah. We're wearing festive attire, we should be.
Small but mighty.
Yes, exactly. I like that. And, you know, people have, when I'm in meetings with other organizations, other COGs, like everyone is fairly impressed by things that River Cog is doing for being so tiny. We're pretty scrappy. So I like that. Don't be defeatist before we start. So that we can get to the cookies and hot cocoa that's set up there, I'm gonna suggest we move on to the next agenda item, and everybody can email me additional ideas if they have them. We'll put these together in a list and send them out, and people can add to them as they will. I believe the next item was updates from the members. Do we have any?
Our case is under appeal. It came in like the 11th hour, literally like 20 minutes before the deadline. Yeah,
And who appealed?
a group of the neighbors. This is the 47 Middlesex Ave in Chester. 35 units. 36 units.
Wow, it continues. Man,
I'm sorry, who has, under the statute, the right to appeal?
Neighbors within 100 feet of the
100 feet.
of the development. You know, there were a couple more.
It's the appeal right goes a little further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think couple extras, but anyway, it's mostly the neighbors, but they've appealed the decision by our planning and zoning commission.
Do you know what the grounds were, like what their?
Very thin, Carrie. in my
Okay.
opinion.
Okay.
It was only like not even 4 pages of appeal. It was pretty. Traffic, all the stuff they brought up during the hearings.
Traffic safety.
Runoff, yeah. Water runoff. Sewer connection. But we do have sewer. We have public water, public sewer. All of that is there on this piece of property. But the neighbors aren't happy.
So I'm curious about this because if the developer appealed a decision, they would have a right to cure their project, right? If any of the causes for rejection or denial were curable, they would have a right to cure and resubmit the application. Now, this is not the developer appealing, this is the the citizens appealing, the neighbors appealing, would the developer still have a right to cure if any of the deficiencies in the application are curable?
I don't know.
Because I feel like it should
New
go
ground for
both
us.
ways, just under the intent of the regulation, but I don't know.
Who's handling the appeal for Justin?
Halloran is. No, I'm sorry. Sylvia Wachowski from the Arch Group.
The Arch?
Yeah, it used to
Isn't
be
in that-
Suffolk and Allen,
Yeah.
and but they,
It's actually the same firm that
It
Essex
wasn't
uses.
Halloran, huh?
Sorry?
It was not Halloran.
it's not how.
No, they're our town attorney, but we have a different firm for planning and
And you
zoning.
said, Carrie, I'm sorry.
That's the same firm, the Arch Group, that Essex uses for our general counsel with the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Is that the old Diazio Pickett?
I just
Yeah.
never heard of it.
Yeah,
Where are they located?
Middletown and Old Saybrook, I think.
Oh, okay.
But they sued both the town planning, well, I think they separated out P and Z, the town in general, and the developers in their complaint.
So this is it's not an 830G challenge, because it's not the developer challenging a rejection, it's the neighbors challenging the acceptance.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's appeal against an appeal, right?
Well, no, because the developer never had to appeal because they approved the application.
So
Very
It's not an
curious.
830G case.
Right.
Some
So
of
I'm very
Connecticut's,
curious.
some of Connecticut's, most groundbreaking, zoning and planning and zoning law came from neighbors appealing.
Mhm. That's interesting. I'm very sorry that you're going through this. I'm very happy to have you as a test case so that we can see how this all plays out.
So that goes to the Superior Court first, right?
Well, on a happier note, in line, we're in the process of changing our zoning to allow multi-unit housing for affordable housing projects only, up to 4 units per building, up to 3 units per acre.
That's awesome.
David, say that again, changing your zoning.
We are adding a paragraph for special use permits where will allow multi-unit housing, no more than 4 units per building, and allowing, and no more than 3 units per acre.
Interesting.
In certain zones?
In, no, it's the whole town, but you have to you have to get a special use permit.
Okay.
And the key is it has to be 100% affordable housing. It's not a percentage or anything like that. It's pure affordable housing.
So is that approved by planning and zoning?
We had the approval for the outline for the concept. I don't think they've approved the actual language.
Text amendment?
Yeah, for it. But they're on board. We did some arm twisting, we did a lot of come to Jesus discussions at behind the scenes.
That's
How do you think it's gonna play out in the public forum?
Oh, that's not gonna be a problem. I mean, one, it's not gonna be a problem.
That's a huge step, Roland. Congratulations.
Yeah, share, if you could share that with us
Yes,
once
okay.
that's.
Once we're done, I'll
Yeah.
bring it in.
Great. Any other updates from anybody?
Essex is looking, the Planning and Zoning Commission is looking at proposing a text amendment as well. So we have an area where the witch hazel factory is, where the steam train is. There's a Route 9 Gateway overlay district that was applied there that we're looking to model a similar text amendment to like the Bolcom Center area, which is Plains Road or 153 and Bolcom Road. And doing a similar like node overlay that would focus on housing, multi-unit, allowing a higher density and affordable component there. And then kind of modeling that and maybe applying it to Ivoryton at some point, and then Centerbrook as well, but baby steps.
That's awesome.
We'll see.
Very cool. For all of these regulation changes, if you can send them to us and we can compile them, we know other people are gonna wanna do something similar at some point, or they may. So if we can have them kind of in the library available.
There, I mean, I think the line one we have as a
A
referral.
referral.
Not should come as a referral, so they're in that chart already.
Perfect, so we'll grab them as they come in.
Yeah.
We swished it, but we had to.
No silos. Any other updates? If not, then I think we can take a motion to adjourn and eat cookies.
Well,
Awesome.
happy holidays to everybody in the room and enjoy your cookies.
Enjoy the.
Might swing by later.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do.